Welcome to episode 407, Bernie Madoff, biggest Ponzi scheme of the world, 1960 to 2008, 10 lessons. This is an outline of episode 407, lesson 1 to lesson 5. This is an outline of episode 407, lesson 6 to lesson 10. Lesson number 1, Bernie Madoff holds 2 world records. Bad records. First record is the biggest Ponzi scheme with a value of over $50 billion. Second, the longest Ponzi scheme that started in 1960 ended in 2008, almost 50 years. It looks like Bernie Madoff also got the longest sentence, 150 years in federal prison. Lesson number 2, he fooled SEC, Nasdaq, Nobel laureates, movie stars, etc. Lesson number 3, the Watchdog was napping. We actually have a whistleblower for almost a decade, Harry Markopoulos.
The regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission. But the SEC repeatedly dismissed the fraud allegations of analyst Harry Markopoulos without properly investigating them.
I gift-wrapped and delivered the largest Ponzi scheme in history to them, and somehow they couldn't be bothered to conduct a thorough and proper investigation because they were too busy. The SEC continues to roar like a mouse and bite like a flea.
But exactly how did Bernie Madoff get away from the regulators? For 50 years, where are the watchdogs?
Discovered this thing nearly a decade ago, led you to this pile of dung that is Bernie Madoff and stuck your nose in it, and you couldn't figure it out.
Lesson number 4, he was an early innovator. Bernie Madoff was not 100% crooked.
Trader Ed Nickel agreed to give Willard an insight into the man he's known for almost 30 years. Madoff began as an upstart broker dealing shares in direct competition to the big boys.
When I first met Bernie, he was an innovator. He realized that he could use technology to compete with the specialists on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. You see, the specialists on the floor traded stocks for their own accounts, and they did it by hand, which took minutes, sometimes 10, 20 minutes to execute, where Bernie would execute a trade, sometimes in seconds.
So what did the guys who were down on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange at the time think about this?
Well, they hated him.
But Madoff the outsider transformed himself to become part of the Wall Street establishment. He even rose to become chairman of the giant Nasdaq market, the busiest stock exchange in the world.
Lesson number 5, his marketing trick was the exclusive club.
How on earth did Madoff persuade people to part with that kind of money? By being exclusive. That's how.
You know, Groucho Marx said, I'd never want to be a member of a club that I could get into. And I think sort of Bernie took that philosophy to the nth degree by creating himself as an exclusive club, right? Everybody wanted to get in, and so if you got in, you felt lucky. So you knew you couldn't ask any questions.
He would say to people, I don't want to take all your money today. I want you to become comfortable with me. So he would say, let's just date for now, and you give me a little bit of money, and then eventually we'll get married. And before you knew it, everybody wanted to be a part of Madoff's investments. I mean, you hear the stories about people literally trying to join the clubs that he was involved with so they could meet him.
Lesson number 6, he is very well organized.
This is what that computer on the 17th floor was producing. False share dealing records for Madoff's clients.
Johnson & Johnson, Microsoft, Mobil Oil.
Every time there was a trade, I would get several times a month thick envelopes. These are the trading tickets, and it tells you who the
That's Intel.
Widow Norma Hill invested directly with Bernie Madoff for 21 years. These statements are all fake. None of these share deals ever took place.
I lost over $1 million.
Lesson number 7, redemption. This is how his Ponzi scheme was exposed. Here's a quote from Warren Buffett. Only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked. In 2008, Bernie Madoff was caught swimming naked. Lesson number 8, how to survive a Ponzi scheme. Diversify instead of investing 100%.
But when you got the call that you had lost your entire life savings, as well as $15 million of the foundation that you and Marianne had worked your whole lives for.
And we were frightened. Midnight.
Midnight.
It was Alicia. Alicia said, first of all, don't worry, everybody is good in the family, nothing happened, nothing. But now sit down.
Sit down. This is your son.
My son. And our son, really, he was a member, then he was a member of our board. And he actually didn't like the idea that we had placed so much money with Madoff.
Because you placed all the money with Madoff.
Yes, he said too much, and so that was a few months earlier, before that. And we told him, come on, we know people who did that. We can't even give, if I told you the names, you will be surprised. The most prestigious names in the financial world have given him the money, so why shouldn't we? He said.
Lesson number 9, no remorse.
Not remorse, but contempt for the weakness of the victim.
Instead, he feels contempt for the people he stole from. Lesson number 10, his 2 sons died while he was in prison. He spent the last 9 years in prison serving a 150-year sentence. One of his sons died of suicide. The other died of cancer. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave your questions and comments below. And for everyone, it is important to study the biggest success as well as the biggest croak.